Hello, and welcome to The Connecting Point. I am Dr. Marcy, your facilitator for this discussion today. This is the place where creators connect to inspire, share their ideas and stories, to transform the world through raw and unedited talk. And today, I'm here with my brother. Yes, that's right. My brother on more levels than one. Elston, I tell the connecting point, but this is Elston Montford. And I will say he is a brother, an MBC brother, and anyone who knows me, I already know the love runs deep for Morris Brown.
Yes,
so that's where we met, and we were in choir together for many years. And he's also my Phi Mu Alpha brother. So he's a music person all the way around. And I am just so elated to have you here with me today, Elston.
Well, thank you, Dr. Marcy. I really appreciate it. It's a joy to be with you. This is my second opportunity to be with you on Connecting Point. The first time was actually with the brothers, and that was phenomenal. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And indeed, once again, I say it's definitely an honor to be here with you today.
Well, listen, y'all got it. That's the connecting point for us. And so, Elston, I would like you to give a little insight, though, about who you are, where you're from, and where you are now.
Excellent, excellent. Well, this is Elston Montford. I'm a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Yes, I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Had the opportunity of definitely meeting my sister Marcy at Morris Brown College, where I studied music, commercial music and recording. Was my music major, was my major, shall I say. And after that, I also have an MBA in business, but I've been able to serve the community for decades, mainly mentoring young men between the ages of 12 and through 35. Because I've grown, and I'm honored to be a father of two sons. I have two sons, the ages of 24 and 22. And why I really emphasize that is because my calling is really to help mentor not only young men, but also young fathers. And that's really a great point that I have, because what I use it as my tagline and my slogan and with my speaking and development business is transforming men through mentorship, engagement, and networking. And I'll say that again.
Yeah.
Transforming men through mentorship, engagement, and networking. If you take the M, the E, and the N, that spells men. So that's really my calling, my passion, and I've been working that for decades.
Well, you invited me to check the course out that you're doing, which we're going to talk about later. And I was just blown away, especially when I heard the acronyms MEN that you just mentioned. I said, oh, wow, that is awesome. Now, Elston, what is your profession by trade, might I ask?
By trade, I'm in telecommunications. I also own my own agency, Specs Telecom Services, where we service business to business. We service business clients from small and medium-sized businesses to large and even enterprise accounts, servicing them through what we call UCaaS, Unified Communications, contact centers as a service, as well as basic connectivity and voice service or even telephone systems.
Okay, so I wanted you to give a little insight about that so people will know that this is beyond
yes
your profession. Yes. This is more so of a calling, I would say.
Well, you know what's interesting, Dr. Marcy, that through what I call marketplace ministry, because even through working with my business clients, I've been able to mentor their sons. So, and just recently, and I won't name it just yet, I've been able to ask by one of the city managers to actually serve in the community, just to help a lot of the young teens and the fathers. So it actually interacts with each other. I go in and work business, but even while doing business, I'm still serving, and because business is not just saying buy here and will you sign here. No, it's also getting a chance to really connect with your customers, building a relationship. And as you build relationship, you end up knowing about their families, some of the things that their children do. And, we find that commonality of me talking to fathers, we exchanging ideas. And then we have those moms that say, well, can you talk to my son? I get that a lot in what I do.
Well, Elston, I'm curious now. What or when did you realize this was a passion of yours? When did you realize that? Talking to these men, as it's not always easy talking to men from a woman's standpoint, but I want to know what inspired it.
It really started with me being with my own sons. And when my sons were younger, my wife was on the road a lot, so that left me with the boys. And I said, hey, look, we're gonna do more than just sit around and look at each other. So I began to train them. And one mistake I made is trying to raise them and train them the exact same way I was trained. They're in a different era. And so they were exposed to some advanced things that I wasn't exposed to when I was their age. And I remember one day, like many parents, they pushed my button and I got mad. But the Lord spoke to me. He said, listen, he said, you can't raise them the same way. And literally it was train your sons through humor. Train your sons through humor. And I said, okay, well, here we go. I said, but I still have my, the way I need to structure them, but I did it differently. And one thing I realized is that my sons gravitated to that way of me teaching. They said, Dad, are you okay? You're not fussing at us. I said, I don't have to. But these are the rules. It was still, hey, man, we got chores to do. We got the house to clean. We got yard work to do. But I changed my way of delivery, the way I delivered the. Okay. So many times as fathers, we think that the thing that we're doing is adopting the way that we were trained. Now, some of it did work, but some of it didn't. And what we find out is that we're some of the things that we try to duplicate don't really match the generation or even the personality.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. I have 2 sons, and I'm also DISC certified. And that gave me an opportunity to understand different personalities, whether it be dominant, whether it be inspiring, whether it be cautious or supportive. But what I realized is that even with my 2 sons, they're completely different. They have the same parents, same dad, follow the same rules, but I deliver the message differently to them both. Yes. And it works. It works. But more than anything, I've learned how to listen better. And as a father, I learned how to listen better and really say, what is it that they're really trying to say? Me growing up with my grandfather, I definitely got his point really great, because he was a stickler. Hey, son, when I say this, do this. So you just did that because you knew, you had to. Right. But Big Daddy didn't always understand what I was saying. I wanted him to be more supportive of me. But because he was unfamiliar with some of the things that I was learning, I didn't get that particular support when it came to things of my own interests. But I just switched it around so I could understand what my sons were really saying so that they could be supported in every area of life that they needed me.
And, it's really interesting that you're talking about this is because that's the standpoint I take in my home with my children and in the classroom. None of us are the same. We learn differently. We have different aspirations, different passions, and we communicate differently based on those passions and the way that we like to learn or express ourselves. And until you sit down and really listen to someone, like you said, you have no idea how to communicate effectively.
So true.
And what you've said didn't really hit them. You think it did because your mom and dad said it that way and you think you got it. But the way that the communication flows is connected to the way a person likes to learn or express themselves. Oh, you're in my lane now, Elston. You are in my lane. This is me all day long. Communicate where I love it. So Let me ask you this. I'm curious. I'm just a curious, thinker right now. In your experience, the way that you approach mentorship with the young men, are there similar factors with mentoring girls?
Similar, yes, but different. Um, you know, young men, boys and girls develop at a different rate and at a different pace. Mm-hmm. And some of the distractions are the same, but some of the distractions are different. Now, one of the things that I've learned, even with the young men, and one of the things that we think that young men are always just going to gravitate towards sports, and that's how you grab their attention. But I've learned differently. Sports is great. Sports is good. But what really boosts a lot of young men is to give them a foundation of entrepreneurship. Why? Because it gives them a sense of creativity, gives them a sense of ownership. It gives them a sense of responsibility, knowing that they have to not care for only themselves, but others, because they have to care for customers. They have to care for a staff. They have to care for others around them. Teaches them how to delegate. Teach them how to just think on multiple levels. Gives them a different exposure. So when we think like that, you're not just singling out just one thing only. Okay, it's not just trying to be the hero. And even when it is in sports, let's learn something beyond just playing on the field or playing on the court. What's the business aspects of sports, of that particular sport? What are the ancillary services that need to go with it? For example, like training, the attire, making sure. What about the medical end of it? So we're looking at the nutrition, the health part. So let's look at all of these and being able to say, okay, when the playing phase ends, what next? Being able to think beyond. So if you look at it, all of it as being, I'm not just a talent, but I'm a business, then you treat it differently. It's a totally different mindset. We once did an illustration by giving the boys a big check. Here's $1 million check. Now let's go through an accounting phase. And some of them said, man, I didn't realize it was like this. They didn't understand taxes. They didn't understand what should I actually do with it, proper investing, things of that nature. You say, well, how does this all deal with boys and fatherhood? Because fathers generally only are able to teach what they know. And if they didn't know this, sometimes, unfortunately, we fathers have egos and we don't want to say, I don't know. So we hide that. Whereas if, many times when a father has a daughter, and I don't have any daughters, I have 7 nieces, but I don't have any girls. But sometimes it's, I can cradle you and I'll protect you. I'll be the provider. So you get a chance to see that part of that fatherhood. But what about if it's a son saying, I've got to teach you how to be the provider, how to be the protector, how to, so that's a different role. So wow. I have seen it differently. Yeah, and I do have some young ladies that are like my nieces, adopted nieces that I do mentor. But it is different.
It's different, yeah. And I wanted you to talk about that because it is very much so different. Even
the emotions are different.
Even as a woman teaching young men, or growing into men, it is so much different. And I'm learning that there's a side of boys that want and desire that nurturing that sometimes fathers don't give like a mother would. Right. However, when I need male intervention in my classroom, I know to go ask a male to intervene. So, sometimes that nurturing side of mothers and women can go a little far, and where boys need to develop, they don't get developed. And I've always said that about myself. Do not let me be the one to stifle a male's growth.
Right.
Yeah, you're laughing, Elston, but the truth is the truth. Now you know it.
I laugh because even in a two-parent household, there's, you have to know how to shift gears. It's like driving a stick shift or a manual vehicle.
Yeah.
Because there are conversations that my boys and I can have when we're alone, but then there's some when we know we can't really say that in front of mom. Why? It's not that we don't love mom, it's that mom is still, like I explained to my sons, they're 24 and 22, but your mom still sees you as her little babies at times.
Right.
And there sometimes, I try to rough them up and say, no, you're going to do it this way. And it's like, you don't hurt their feelings, are you? Hurting their feelings? No, I'm not hurting their feelings. I'm talking about manhood right now. But is that a part of nurturing? To me, it is. Let me tell you what. There's a type of nurturing that is not a petting nurturing, but it's a tough love. I had to do that when it came to teaching my sons how to purchase their car. When I said, you're not going to go into debt, and our voices raised just a little bit, but it didn't bother us. We just said, no, look at it this way. Now look at it this way. Now let's pull out the spreadsheet, read the numbers. Which one is best? And overall, who won? It's not me that won. It's not him. We all won as a family because because clarity and understanding came. And with that, everyone wins. Everyone wins. Now, so I do understand.
The mentoring piece, I suppose, is one of the foundations of what you're doing now. That mentoring piece is heavy. However, you're also talking about engagement. What do you mean by that exactly?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I use the phrase proximity versus engagement. Many times we fathers have felt that because we're present or we're in the same geographical location that we're really listening to you or we're communicating. And that's completely wrong. Proximity simply means you're in the area. Engagement means you have a listening and you have dialogue. If there's a question and you don't know the answer, you both can go and research it together and not just say, I don't know, or why are you asking me that? You don't even have the question. So that engagement, what that engagement does, where we miss it is we don't realize that engagement is actually adding bricks and pillars to the actual relationship. With engagement becomes a stronger relationship. If you don't engage, you don't know each other. You may be in the same place, but you don't know each other. And unfortunately, I've had to go back and rescue. And what I mean by that is there have been some sons that say, well, I don't connect with my father. Why? You're in the same place. He never listens to me. You ask for father. Well, he doesn't understand. He doesn't listen. He's just, being bullheaded. No, you didn't sit down and really engage with him. You didn't ask him, what does he feel? What does he want? What is his perspective? You didn't want him to give him his opinion. Now, I didn't say rude and unmannerly. I said, but what is his opinion? For example, when you talk about a career choice, is it your idea of a career that he's going after, or is it something that he really wants to go after? I've seen one of my sons change his course of correction and said, look, I don't want this career anymore. I want to do this because this is my passion. I said, go for it. I'll support you. But I really had to listen to what he was saying. And many times we don't really engage, and that's why we miss it. That's why there are many times when young men will graduate and the first thing that they hear in their head is, when you turn 18, you get out of my house.
Yeah.
Why am I putting you out without a plan? Because if I put you out without a plan, one or two things are going to happen. Either you're going to come back or you're going to end up, being in a place where it brings shame. I don't want either one. So let me make sure you're prepared. In order for you to be prepared, I have to make sure that I'm constantly listening to what you're saying and how you're perceiving it and how you're breaking down it and knowing your level of understanding. I won't know that just being proximal. I'll only know that through engagement.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And I'm also glad you mentioned that piece about when I've heard 18, you get out of the house and they're not ready. If they're not ready,
right.
You just said it. It'll bring shame sometimes or cause them to come back.
Right.
You don't want that either.
That's right.
Now, when you're talking about engagement, have you found that some fathers have a hard time accepting help from someone like you?
um, you know what's really funny is that it doesn't show up more as fast in the fathers as it does in the sons, because when first a son may not even listen, you may think he's not even listening to his father, but this is where the village or community comes in. You can have an uncle or a community leader or another mentor say the same thing that father's saying, and that brings confirmation and helps with the validation of that young man. I'll give you an example. I was when my oldest son was in college, I was driving him home from school one day, and I asked him, I said, "Do you really appreciate me as a father?" And he said, "You know, Dad, I really do." He said, "But after listening to this mentor and this mentor, they were saying the same thing you were saying. So I figured you knew what you were talking about." Now, I could have gotten offended by that. However, I was glad that he really connected and to let me know that I was really saying what he needed. He just wanted confirmation that what I was saying was true. Hey, we do it all the time. We look at reviews when we buy things, whether we going shopping, whether we going to a movie, whether we're going on vacation, we ask somebody else, somebody that's been there. Okay. So I'm glad he asked somebody that has been there, somebody else that was a father just like me, and they said the same thing I did. So that brought great. Now, let's go back to your original question. Do fathers get offended? Unfortunately, there are some fathers that just stop. They cut off at the engagement piece because they walk in the unknown. Another example would be, I have a son that's in veterinary medicine. That is not my field. Because because I don't know that level of science and those levels of level of medicine, that didn't make me stop. What it did was, which I get to the networking part, is I'll go out and I help network with my pool of friends and those that I've met. And I actually go out and say, look, I'm looking for someone that has this expertise. Why? Because my son wants it, all right, or needs it. Now, when I find that expert mentor, I introduce him to my son, which I did. But that does not dilute my mentorship. Right. That does not dilute me as being his number one mentor as a father. If nothing else, again, that enhances the relationship. And if you really catch even with the acronym, what we're really building two things: relationship and communication. So once we learn how to communicate, we build better relationships, because it's the relationship that we really want between a father and his son. Why? Because it lasts for decades, and it also leads to another generation.
You sitting here talking about, building up men, but this is good for everybody. Like you said, Marcy, I want you to just go on and look at the course too. When I started looking at it, I said, this is something for everyone. Because like you just said, it is communication that is a big piece of this as well. And I'm just interested, looking at generations of men in my family and how they dealt with the girls and how they dealt with the young men. I can see now that their impact on the men of my family was really, really strong. They had a very strong impact on the males. And one of the things that was communicated clearly was, you got to be a provider.
Yes.
And so you see that from all of, and so as a young girl watching that, I'm like, now he provide, what's up, because that's what I grew up seeing. A man who is a provider and a protector. So if I'm looking at you and you're not protected, and that's on all kind of levels, I watched something one day at work. I watched a man on the job move a girl out of the way and stepped over it, in the lane where there would have been danger. And it was a boy. And I thought, oh my gosh, that child has it. He didn't have to do it. he moved, he saw danger. His instinct was, I'm getting ready to intervene. Nobody asked him to do it. And to see that on a boy, I thought, who taught him that? Who?
You know what that goes to? That's also a part of one thing I teach. I also teach vision, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we talk about vision, yes, it is written, but you know, vision is caught. It's lived out. And so there was, to me, it was something, not so much that was taught, but something that was caught. He watched somebody, he observed somebody. So that instinct came from something that he was around. It wasn't always practiced. He just knew it was present, and he knew it when it was time to execute it. He knew exactly what to do. So when vision is actually taught in the home, and as I teach my own sons, I said, you know, what's your vision for your life? I said, when you start dating, I said, trust me, that young lady, she wants to know, what's your plan? Why? Because you have a responsibility. If you have a plan, you have to give her something to follow. Just like, you know, y'all are following me. One thing I noticed about my sons, in which they said, they're not looking for perfection. They're looking at how you maneuver through each thing. Even at my lowest point, when I could have said, you know what, I reached my biggest failure. They observed how I shifted. What did Dad do? How did he overcome this challenge? So all of that helps, and it also shows them a line of character development. So when we're working with fathers, you know, we work with fathers, first of all, to have that commitment to be a father and the courage to be a father. But with young men, it's just as important that we help them clarify their purpose as well as develop character. You don't want to be a character, you want to develop character.
Develop it, yeah.
And even when we have to work with single moms, it's that way of helping them communicate effectively. So, you know, those are things.
I mean, this is just good stuff. I'm so glad you're doing this, you know, and I imagine there are so many men out there that need help. And that pride thing comes in and they don't want to ask for it. But you are clearly the one that can do this and can prepare men and young boys to grow into adulthood successfully. And like you said earlier, you know, it has to be observed. When a boy sees something, it has to be observed. And that's what I think is vital. You know, at my school, my principal just implemented a program for boys, mentoring. And I just watched the transformation within 2 weeks' time of how the boys began to carry themselves, because they had a group of men saying that you're part of us now. So you got to carry yourself that way. And, you know, I have chairs in my room. I needed some extra chairs for something I was doing. And one of the little boys that's in the mentoring group, he said, listen, sit down, Dr. Simmons, we got this. So, you know, so I said, you know what? A few weeks ago, he didn't say that. But just that part of being in the group, even the dress, they said, you're going to come in here, dress, put a tie on, a shirt, and some slacks. You're going to dress the part. And, you know, sometimes I have to even remind them, like if I'm walking down the hall and I see something off kilter, I'll quickly say, all right, man of the manor. And then they'll straighten up, right? You know, what you need, Dr. Simmons. So it's just so wonderful to see men mentoring young men to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And we need that, the women now, we need some help now. Right? You're laughing.
I understand.
Because one day they gonna have wives and families.
That's true.
And
That's
so,
true.
like you said, build up, treat them as such, as young men, build them up to be providers, protectors. And then us ladies will handle the chilling part.
That's great. That's great. You know, one of the other things that we have to, you know, all of this is wonderful, and this is the good part. But some of the things that we actually have to go through to actually touch the man, men have emotions also, and they express them differently. And one of the biggest things that I help men to do is go through forgiveness and through release. What do I mean by that? Because that grown man that you see still has that little boy inside of him that says, I never knew my dad, or my dad walked out on me. Okay. And he's carrying two things. He said, either I'm going to imitate what he did and I'm going to be angry, or I've got to find a way to release so I can plant a new tree. I've got to be the new seed so I can plant the new tree. So throughout this course, we also talk about being vulnerable, saying, hey, look, let the ego go. Let's go through forgiveness. First, sometimes you have to actually forgive yourself, then forgive others, and actually not only forgive them, but learning how to release it so you can move forward. Again, some of the ways we actually raise our children is an imitation of what we saw and what was done to us. And sometimes we have to take a totally different path. Also, some of the hurt that we actually have to really minister to is those that were actually in a situation where they lost their father to death. In other words, their father passed away. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to lose a father at the age of 12. And I know what it's like to have somebody trying to comfort you, to put responsibility on you that you don't even know. But I was very thankful that I had a lot of uncles and I had a lot of older cousins that were able to fill that void. But I bring that up because men also look for validation. They don't say that, but they're really looking for it. They say, I don't need to be validated by anybody. Well, you're asking for it. And it comes up when a man can really be honest. I was honest one day, and I went to my mentor and said, I don't think I'm a great father. I don't want to serve as a mentor. And one of the best things my mentor told me at the time, he said, you don't have to say a thing. Just sit here. Just be in the room. Just be in the presence. So that's why it's important. What I'm doing now is also developing workshops. Why? You just need to be in the room with other fathers. You need to be in the room with other men. It's not that we're trying to be against women and shut them out. No, they just need to be in a place where they can just be themselves and say, all I need is to know that I'm not walking this by myself.
Yeah.
Even men, fathers, it doesn't matter where you are. I've had, I want to bring this up, but sometimes we think that it's the guy that has the low income that's really lacking. No. I've actually had professional doctors and accountants, CPAs said, I needed this course. Why? Because they didn't know how to engage properly. They married and engaged more with their business or their profession and left their children alone. That's still being in a place where that's proximity, but that's not engagement.
Now let's move to this networking piece. You touched on it a little bit, but can you go a little in depth with what networking entails?
That's, to me, one of the greatest joys, to be able to network with your own sons. I'm a member of Phi Mu Alpha Symphonic Professional Music Fraternity of America Incorporated. I was at Kappa Beta chapter. But one of the most exciting parts is to watch my youngest son in action. My youngest son is actually in the film industry. He does theater, he does film and television. At the time of this recording, he's on his way back from Las Vegas from producing another project. To watch him accelerate through that, and to know that I can network with my sons, because I didn't know social media at all. I didn't know the difference between Instagram and Telegram. So if it wasn't for me networking with them, hey, I wouldn't know. And that's one piece we miss. We don't know that. Let's network together. I use your wisdom, you use mine. I use yours, you use mine. And my son is actually one of the ones that helped produce my online courses. He actually helps me produce anything that I do online. Why? He has a full production company. So he can say, all right, Dad, we're going to do it this way. He's the one that taught me lighting. We would have been sitting here talking in the dark. He bought the lights, I didn't. But, even going to my oldest son saying, you know what, I don't know your industry as far as the science part, but I know how to engage with people. I know how to network with people, and I can help you on that end. What can I do to help you? There's ways that we can assist our sons in multiple areas. Can I, do I need to go to a panel? I've actually enjoyed learning my son's industry, and upon his acceptance to veterinary school, we're both joining the veterinary association. Why? Because I want to stay connected to him. I may not do a surgery like he does, but I can communicate with others. I can, find other business networks that we can do together. So that's a joy. Why? Because we continue to, again, build a relationship. We can build businesses together. And that's so much fun. And it keeps us together as a family.
And you're building that decade that you talked about. Fathers empowering for decades.
Yes.
Now,
because these are things they never forget. And if you really think about it, you remember things that your father did 10, 20, 30 years ago. And some things that we don't realize is that our children, our sons, they're going to remember things 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. So why don't we plant the good memories? Why don't we plant the good seeds? Give them something that they can teach their children. And that will go on for decades also.
Now, there was also something I noticed within your courses. I don't want to give all of it away, but there was one that really stuck out to me was influence. And so talk a little bit about influence for me.
Influence is really intentional.
Yeah.
It's intentional. So when we say we want to influence, there are things that we actually do. You heard me speak about vision earlier. I do things on purpose to influence my sons. I give them something to follow, and I want them to follow a pattern. Okay. But they don't do it just because I say it. They do it because they see it. They observe it. So when my part of influencing you is to let you know, I used to tell my sons all the time, I say, hey, listen, I'm on your team. Because when instead of trying to compete with me, let's create together. All right. And boys do that. They have that competitive nature just like I did. But when I'm influencing you, I'm glad that you're competitive, but that you know that there was a level beyond competition, and that is creativity. So if we create it, we own it.
Yes, right? There you go.
But that has to be intentional. That has to, come through influence. So I use that also because we need to know that our sons are always watching. They're always watching us. So we have to purpose to be that great influence to make sure that they do it, because they'll do it if they see it versus when they hear it.
Well, listen, men, engagement, and networking. If you don't remember anything but that audience, remember that. But I want Elston, will you tell the audience how they can, sign up for this course? I could tell them, but I think it's more impactful from you of how they can move at their own pace.
Yes.
Okay, explain that a little bit.
So we develop a course. The course is Fathers Matters. All right, where we're empowering fathers to be decision makers, make those great decisions that will last for decades. Now, how do you get it? Simply go to empoweringfathers.men. That's Empowering Fathers with the EM, empoweringfathers.men, MEN.
Did you hear that? Empoweringfathers.men. I'm taking the course myself. I'm not finished, but I'm taking the course. And so you don't have to be a man, do you, Elston?
No, not at all.
See? You got single moms out there like me. You need to know about the men you're raising, okay? And the men you about to marry or you're dating or something. Look, it's a reason you can get on that platform. So men and women,
yes,
you can take the course. And I will tell you that I've already looked at the modules. One of them I've seen just last night. It is valuable. It is valuable. You would want to treat yourself to that for the knowledge that's embedded in that course and share it with others as well. Elston, I think it, listen here. I'm so proud of you. I really am. I'm proud. My brother.
That means a lot coming from you, Dr. Margie.
Listen here. Brown nights. Yeah, when I see you do excellent work, oh my gosh, it is just something. It brings me joy. So I commend you on that, and I pray that it will go to all over global.
Yes, I thank you.
And so, Elston, one more thing. How can the audience, if they want to invite you to be a speaker, a motivational speaker somewhere, I know that you're able to do that as well. Yes. How can they contact you for that?
Simply go to elstonspeaksworldwide.com. That's ELSTON worldwide.com. elstonspeaksworldwide.com.
Okay, y'all got it. No excuses. Now, I'm going to say what I say every week. If you would like to be a guest on the Connecting Point with Dr. Marcy, and you want to inspire others to help transform the world for the better, reach out to me at drmarcyts@gmail.com. You can go to Dr. Marcy's Connections, Google it. You can join the group Creators, the Connecting Point for Creators group on Facebook. It's just a community of creators. We help promote each other. We network, inspirations on there to help you keep moving in your areas of creativity. So if that sounds like something you would like to do or join, ask for a request to join through Facebook. Now, this show airs on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on Instagram TV. It airs on Facebook. It airs on YouTube. You can get it on Spotify and Anchor, and you will be able to hear it at KBCN TV on Wednesday nights. So you have no excuse. All I ask is you click, like, and share. Don't be selfish with all this information. Click, like, and share so other people can be inspired. All right? Elston, thank you so much again for this wonderful talk, informative talk. And I pray, like I said, that it goes far.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marcy.
All right, until we meet again.